Hello, and welcome to the IAB Brand Academy webinar. The topic of today's session is how consumer journey intelligence can help achieve above benchmark business outcomes. We will have a few minutes towards the end of the panel discussion to address your questions. Please make sure you submit your questions through the Q&A box button on the screen on your Zoom. Now, allow me to introduce Seraj Bharwani, Chief Strategy Officer of AcuityAds, who will be moderating today's session. For those who are not familiar with the company, AcuityAds is a Canadian publicly owned company that developed illumin, the first omnichannel journey automation platform in the ad tech industry. And now, without further ado, here is Seraj.
Thank you, Mona. Really appreciate it. Hello and welcome. I'm so delighted you could join us today. Let me introduce our panelists for today. With me are Max Dobbs and Jake Heiser, my colleagues from AcuityAds. Max has been the EVP of enterprise sales with the company. He is the champion who works very closely with our product teams and our development teams, engineering teams, to really push the envelope of the whole category of what we call journey automation. He's out there. He has a lot of great perspectives that he will share with you today. And Jake Heiser, who is the Senior Director of Enterprise Solutions with AcuityAds. Jake has been on the front lines and he really works closely with all of our senior clients in the way they interact with our platform and the way they are building out and pushing the envelope of what consumer journey marketing is all about. There's a lot of learnings, as you will notice. There is a lot for us to absorb from both Max and Jake today, learn about it and really put it into action. Really, our goal today is for you as an audience to walk away with a couple really good ideas that you can take with you and begin to think a little bit more about how you can advance the way you do the marketing, especially journey marketing. With that, Max and Jake, let me set this up and then we can roll with the discussion today. This whole topic of journey marketing, and in particular, the journey intelligence, has really become an integral part of the marketing agenda for most divisions, most departments across the organizations, and not just in North America, but elsewhere. And let me tell you why. There are a variety of reasons for that. One is the media environment, not surprisingly, is a very highly fragmented environment at this point. We are now, using just about every possible device. We love to multitask. We are exposed to a variety of different ways in which we consume content, and advertising is an integral part of that. And so to get somebody's focused attention on any particular brand message is very difficult these days. And so you want to be able to make the most of it in the first engagement. Let's see how complicated this issue is, especially for product categories like education. Big ticket items where somebody would commit $50,000 to $70,000 in online education. They have to think about that. It isn't a decision they can make on first impression. It's going to take a few months even, if not years, to really make a commitment, because it's not just about money. It's about whether you will have the time, will you have the energy, the motivation to continue and get your degree done and so forth. The retail, automotive, these are all considerations that actually take time. Financial services, even personal care is a decision that's so sort of personal for people. They need to think about exactly what fits and how, and it's beyond just a product. There's so much that you're tied with it. Or home improvement. All of these things are decisions, considered decisions that take actually time, and therefore, if you're going to connect with the consumer, they are on a journey of their own, trying to figure out how these things fit into their lives, how they can make use of it, how do they make it an integral part of improving the quality of their lives, and how they can afford it and so forth. There's so many considerations that come into play. Let's just illustratively take, for an example, a Sephora customer, for example, right? Look at all the questions she has regarding anything in personal care that she is willing to even consider and make it part of her own routine or regimen, right? Whether it is the right thing, is it the right brand, is it the right use for which I should, is it something I can afford? Is it something that I can share with others and learn from others? Are there reviews out there? Is it the right trendy thing right now that is like fit? Is it really the right organic thing or whatever? There are so many considerations that come into the picture. And this isn't something that she's going to be thinking about in one pass. It goes on, it's sort of something that's playing on her mind, and she's going to be thinking about it and making a decision whenever she wants to. If Sephora wants to be part of that journey, there are many ways to be part of that. You can intercept at any point in the early stage, at a point where there's further engagement. There's the desire element, there's the inspiration, the consultation element for all of these questions to come into. Then there is the whole purchase element. How easy or seamless is it? And then there is advocacy element, which goes on. A significant part of personal care products are actually repeat. People actually just sign up for it and they receive it, and it's like autopilot. And so brands have to really try hard to break into that routine and figure out how they can become part of that process through which people go through to decide whether this is something that's the right thing for them. Now you can see how critical this has become, and yet all the intelligence associated with having the knowledge and the understanding of where the consumer is in their thought process, most marketers simply do not have that intelligence. It's unfortunate, but that's the nature of this thing right now. And as there are greater privacy concerns, there's regulation in the mix, and the trust become an integral element of that, it is getting harder. How do you get close to your consumer? How do you get close enough so you have enough knowledge and an idea of when you first connect with them? How can you guide them through this process? Most marketers have real difficulty getting to the core intelligence that they need to make those decisions. And this is the reason why this is top of the marketing agenda these days, taking control of the consumer journeys. That doesn't necessarily mean you have to be creepy. That doesn't mean you have to be there everywhere where the consumer goes physically. What we're talking about here is the mental, the mind state. Where are they? What are they thinking about? What are the prior major needs, concerns that are on top of mind for the consumers? That's really what we're talking about. That's what marketers want to be able to understand. With that, let's bring Max and Jake. Guys, bring on your video so that our audience can actually see and we can actually have a live discussion on this thing. Max, I'm going to start with you. The company really innovated something fabulous here, and you've been on the front lines of this thing, championing this cause, as I mentioned earlier. What is illumin? Describe it for our audience, please.
Good to see you, Seraj. So illumin is a DSP, but it's much more. It's really a journey automation tool. And what illumin allows you to do is to plan a unified journey. You're taking whatever audiences you'd like to communicate with that you find high value in, put them into a journey canvas, and completely control communication across the entire funnel, from awareness to engagement, all the way down to conversion, whatever that means to your brand.
Essentially, I know you've mentioned this word control a variety of times. It's such an integral part of this. It doesn't necessarily mean we are controlling the consumer per se. It's really giving marketers a level of control in the way they message. That's what you're talking about, in the way they optimize and the channel mix and so forth, right? That's what you're referring to. Why don't you do this? Why don't you bring us up? I'm going to stop sharing. You bring up your sort of literally take our audience into the platform and walk them through exactly how do you set this up as a journey framework so you can maximally extract the information and the intelligence, as we refer to be able to make some really solid decisions that would be so helpful in terms of advancing the marketing agenda.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're looking at is illumin, and this is our journey canvas. This is what really separates this platform from other solutions in the space, is this idea of a whiteboard. The whiteboard that lives in your conference room is basically replicated here. So the idea is to use the same screen that you use to plan and activate the media to actually understand how consumers move through a connected journey. And we'll talk about what that discovery looks like. The first thing definitely to focus on is control. So I'll give you a quick example here of how easy the technology actually is to use. We always start with an audience. And then what we do is we would simply build out a path, a communication path to talk to this particular audience. Anytime you see these orange diamonds on the canvas, these are called conditions. We'll dive into this in just a moment. But this is what determines whether a consumer actually progresses to the next stage of the journey or they stay where they are. But I'm going to actually build in for display. I'm going to use an impression condition. For video, I'll use a video view condition. For audio, I'll use an audio listen condition. And there, as a pretty novice user, I was able to drag in an audience and then control communication. And what we're doing here is we're actually enabling the AI to select, should we reach this user with display, video, or audio at this particular touch point, right? So let's talk about the obvious. The obvious is why do this, right? So we can control communication in a unified way across the entire funnel. Okay, so what I'm going to do for a second here is I'll zoom out just so you can see the entire funnel. And let's say we wanted to talk to contractors, power sports enthusiasts, DIY segments, NFL fans. These were audiences that we find value in as a brand. Okay, now I'll zoom in a little bit.
1 second. You're actually referring to an automotive brand at this point, right? This is a Ford truck, which is one of the most popular brand that sells amazing number of these vehicles in any given year in North America, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they've spent millions of dollars to try to figure out who is their ideal target, right? And so this machine allows them to then take back control in a nuanced way of how they communicate across the entire funnel versus trying to stitch it together later, right? So what you'll notice is there's a custom communication path for each audience target that they're going after. And one thing we need to figure out is, what is our marketing goal? And we can actually adjust the goal at every stage of the journey. So here in awareness, we're actually going to go after users who we think need brand equity built with the F-150. Okay, now as these users progress, as a marketer, I can then change the goal. So here is a cost per click goal. So now how likely is the consumer to engage with the competitive differentiators, exclusive features, or the driving comfort of the F-150 versus a Silverado per se, right? Now, as this user progresses, we can then again change the goal. Here we have a ROAS goal. So how likely are they to sign up for financing, interest rates? How likely are they to build out an F-150 on one of Ford's sites, right?
Like essentially configure the truck with all of the accessories and features and things like that you're referring to, right?
Absolutely. And so when we talk about this setup as a marketer, you always think about the journey in stages, and a lot of times you're forced to execute that way. With this platform, we can hit a tactic level goal and customize marketing performance, what success looks like at each stage. But then we could help F-150 figure out, what does it truly cost to drive an NFL fan from unaware of a need to potentially building out a model on the site versus a DIY target versus a power sports target versus a contractor target, right? So outside of just hitting tactic level goals, we can now start to understand, what does it cost holistically to drive an action in the programmatic landscape, right? Make sense so far?
Yes. I think this is very, very clear. The big messages I took away is, number one, creating this level of building blocks for a journey at different stages, from awareness to engagement to actual behaviors highly indicative of people's intention to buy, can all be mapped in a systematic way with very specific triggers, very specific objectives at every stage of the way, and be able to get a clear understanding of exactly how much does it cost to really reach people at each stage and transition them. Did I get that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Let's take a look at a couple other things. I mentioned these conditions here. and this is customizable, this will allow you to determine as a marketer what allows a user to progress to the next step. In this particular instance, we're saying they have to see this connected TV spot 5 times in 3 days, and this is customizable. So what we could do is we could actually figure out, based on historical data as a marketer, what does make someone aware, right? We can set up a journey where we have one condition of 5 views in 3 days versus 10 views in 3 days, and I'll actually show you that in just a moment. But we can set up all sorts of different tests across the funnel.
But this is very significant, Max. Thank you for saying that, because you're essentially talking about what marketers have always been concerned about. How can I control reach and frequency? And you're literally talking about control over reach and frequency throughout different stages of the journey. That's really different.
Absolutely. So let's take a look at another type of advertiser. So this is a mattress advertiser in the bedding space, Purple. And what we're looking at here is a full funnel journey. And they're more of an evergreen journey that they're running, right? That they have on. They're always trying to sell mattresses. There's not a tremendous amount of seasonality. There's some, but they always want to be communicating. And we wanted to create a consumer lifecycle management tool, right? And so what you see here, let's take a slight step back, Seraj, and figure out, outside of controlling communication, which we know is important to brands because they spend millions of dollars to figure out how to talk to people, is how does changing conditions along the funnel impact the speed and efficiency in which audiences move through? Right? You took all this time to build these high value audiences. Now let's control communication and figure out what's working with each audience, right? So what we have here is we have Purple, and I'll zoom in. So in awareness, they're actually testing 10 views in 3 days versus 5 views in 3 days, right? And obviously there's a different media cost associated with serving 10 views than 5, but because the journey is actually connected, I can actually determine if a user got 10 views versus receiving 5, how does that impact their likelihood to buy a mattress downstream? How does it impact their average order value? How does it impact their likelihood to buy a companion product with the mattress? How does it impact their conversion rate? Right?
Perfect. You are defining essentially, Max, what control really means from a marketer's perspective. This is fabulous. What you're really saying is these different conditions are like knobs you can tune, really fine tune at different stages, and control reach, frequency, impact on behavior, all the way from upstream to downstream.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at another example from another type of advertiser. So we'll go back to auto. This is Mercedes here, and we're looking at a weekend warrior audience. They've got a bunch of audiences that they want to communicate with, right? And what they're actually testing is what I designed when I showed you how the interface worked here. They're looking at, for this weekend warrior audience, well, what's most effective? Should I serve connected TV to this user? Should I serve audio or online video? Now, what makes this unique is we can make this dynamic. The machine can decide, right? Or if we didn't want to give the machine that control, we could force users down a specific path. But what really makes it exciting is, for one of the first times, we can see that if a user takes a CTV path versus an online video path, how does that impact their likelihood to build out a Sprinter van downstream?
Yes.
I could actually understand that now, because most of the time we're just looking at awareness tactics with very broad reaching measurement, right?
Yes.
DR, etc.
It's the single biggest question, Max. We are going to go back to this one again when we speak with Jake and when we get him involved in the conversation here. Is going to be really figuring out, do the awareness dollars really impact performance at the downstream end of the journey? And I think you're beginning to show that if you set it up this way, there's a good chance that you can actually figure that out.
Right. And you can at least develop a better understanding, because if you're spending 80% of your budget in upper funnel, you definitely need to be able to justify that with some sort of downstream action. Right?
Completely. Yes.
So another thing I want to show you, Seraj, is let's talk about the why. So we talked about media mix. We talked about frequency and recency windows, right? We could also test if I zoom in here a little bit, different product ads, pillow versus seat cushion versus mattress, I can let the AI select, or I can force users down a specific path. But let me zoom out for a second and let me tease this a little bit. What we can actually test is a user that goes through an entirely connected journey, all the way from awareness to engagement to conversion. How does that impact their likelihood to convert, their average order value? How does it impact their ROAS? Because obviously it costs way more to pull someone through an entire marketing funnel than to just drop them into a remarketing pool.
Yeah,
So
I think that makes total sense because, you know, there's only so much budget to go around, right?
Right. And what this machine allows you to do, it enables you customization. So you could actually let the machine place users in the most appropriate stage of the journey based on the decision science that we have that anchors our platform, or you could have dynamic control of where users start every journey.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's something that is definitely very powerful, and a lot of brands are trying to figure out is what is the value of taking someone through a connected journey.
I think that makes sense, actually, Max. The other thing that would be very important for our audience is to know that it is not necessarily important for everybody to go through this entire journey, so to speak, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So basically, if I open this audience drawer, what you'll see here is a bunch of audiences that we're going after here. Again, we're audience agnostic as a platform. So whatever audience you want to use, you can purchase in the platform or pipe in your own data. And you can see all the audiences in a drawer here, whether they're first party or third party. But when we enable prospecting, what this does is it actually allows us to find users who don't live in any of these known buckets. And then what we're going to do is we're going to dynamically insert them into the journey at the most appropriate stage.
Absolutely.
So,
yes.
Quick example for you, Seraj. I'll use you as an example as a consumer. Let's say all I know about you is you just moved. So you're more likely than the average US consumer to buy a mattress. Well, maybe we would drop you an awareness and you would get these 10 views, right? But if we can figure out that you've been flirting with other players in the bedding space, maybe we abandon awareness, right? And we drop you right in on engagement to try to get you fast tracked on a journey that you've already started as a consumer. Maybe you've been tweeting about a competitor. Well, we could drop you almost directly into a remarketing campaign or a conversion campaign and completely bypass awareness and engagement. So what we're talking about big picture is valuing a user, matching them to a path, and then dynamically entering them into the funnel at the most appropriate stage to fast track users who we don't need to waste awareness dollars on, and to get better at nurturing users who we still need to build brand equity with.
Max, this is a very compelling argument. This is fantastic. Thank you for setting this up, because we need to get Jake to sort of come into the picture here, unless you have something else here that you wanted to point to.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me show you something else. Let me show you why we call the platform illumin.
Okay.
And what you're looking at here is, we talked a lot in the beginning about being able to control, visualize, and understand performance through a singular screen of understanding. So we can actually see where the users are in real time across the journey. So we can see that for this particular brand, we've got 1.5 million users receiving one of these 6 detox changing lives ads right now. 165,000 are meeting this 2-view condition and transitioning through. So I can see where users are across the entire journey, which is very powerful through a singular interface. But when we talk about outcomes, this is why we called the platform illumin, because it's designed to illuminate the most appropriate communication path. So let's say as a brand, I want to know which path had the lowest media cost for me, the most efficient path across these various pathways, right? All I would need to do, I can start from anywhere on the canvas. And what this shows me is this path was the most efficient path across the journey. Okay.
That's fantastic. You know, we need to let our audience absorb this thing. This is just so easy. It's incredible, because I've seen trying to do this thing elsewhere before, and it could take some serious processing of a lot of different data across many different line item executions to stitch it all together, which could take me a week or more. to come to this realization, what you just did with a single click of a button.
Yeah, it could take a lot of machines and a lot of manpower to try to figure this out, right? So let's say as a marketer, your goal, what you've been tasked with for success was clicks. So you need to understand, well, which path generated the most effective path in terms of your benchmark, right? So this is a different path notice. Okay, so this is the path that generated the most clicks along the entire journey. But what if I want to know my ultimate source of truth, which is conversions or sales? Again, I'll start at the beginning of the journey, and you'll notice that that's a different pathway. So what we see is the path that had the lowest media costs is identical to the path that generated the most conversions. But as a marketer, Seraj, your benchmark was CTR, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we should rethink your benchmark mid-funnel, because your CTR objective is not driving the most efficient media cost or sales.
Completely. I totally get it. This is truly amazing, Max. You laid it out and illustrated it so beautifully. Do me a favor. Can you stop sharing so I can actually bridge it over to, because I want to figure out how we can get Max to lift off of where you are and begin to help us understand how we are deriving real results from it. Because remember now, the audience that is with us today is interested in two big things, Max. One thing that you just described. How can we set up the journey in a way that we can connect with the consumers at the right moment, right time, with the right message, and be able to optimize towards the objectives that we have given the budget that we are working with? And so that's the first thing. The second thing is, Jake, are you on? I actually have you here.
I'm here.
So what we want to do is the next question, which is, how do I really make an impact on outcomes, the real outcomes, which is really selling stuff, driving revenue, that kind of stuff. And so help us, first of all, broadly thinking about this way of thinking. Remember now, the journey, the idea of consumer journey and thinking about it, mapping it, and all of that has been around for over a decade. You know that.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that what Max was describing right now was the ability to have this kind of a canvas, single screen, single control over which you can view everything. And so the next question for me, for you is, what kind of use cases are you seeing this for? Who is using all, like programs, verticals, timelines in terms of durations over which your programs are running? Just give our audience a little feel for that.
Yeah, I mean, with all the elements that we have available, there's so many different ways that things can be connected. So it's built to be modular, right? So we can go from anything from an auto client like Max was showing us, to pharmaceutical, which has no end trackable attribute online, to selling products with a DTC or e-commerce client. So, ultimately, we just look at what do we have to work with, what are the real true business objectives, and how do we stitch that together? And that can really culminate from some really basic creative sets, just working with maybe a few display creatives and doing some different sequential messaging or tests, to a really robust media plan where we're using every digital channel under the sun and transitioning between them and doing A/B tests. So it's built to be very flexible.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. So let's jump with that. And I know the case studies are probably the best way to really illustrate how you can drive business outcomes with this kind of a framework, right? So go for it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We'll start with something that's a little bit more simple. We'll start with somebody that's actually selling online, e-commerce client. Everything is able to be tracked. And with these guys, they're a leader in that bed in the box space, right? And so they sell those, they have additional products, sheets, pillows, tertiary goods. So what they really wanted to know, and their objective was, we can spend additional budget in upper and mid funnel, but what does that do for us, right? Like, we need to sell products at the end of the day. We need to be profitable, and there's a lot of extra cost by running that full funnel. So what does that all mean? How do we know what's working? And that's exactly what Max was talking about with us just a second ago. How do we actually connect all the dots and see that true holistic performance? So the first thing we always do is we try to figure out what is the test here, right? And in this case, we are now going in, does an upper funnel, an awareness or an engagement touch point generate any additional benefit? So obviously one portion of our test is going to be creating that fully connected journey, taking someone through some video creatives or display creatives that build awareness, creating different decision trees on how do we get them to engage, or how do we educate them that they're not just bed in the box, right? They have pillows, they have sheets, they have extra goods that can be purchased, and build that greater engagement, that greater awareness before they finally go through and buy a product, right? And they pull the trigger and they get that seamless contactless delivery or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to compare that to something, right? So on the next slide here, we're looking at that just more traditional setup. It might not look like what everyone's used to, but it's just that conversion only, optimizing towards a return on ad spend, right? And we're just tactically looking at which creative, the sale creative versus the pick your comfort level. Let's sell them one, let's get them converted. And so we can create that baseline of something they're used to running and they think is the most profitable for them versus, again, that fully connected journey and what those differences might be. So what we do with all of this, and we'll have an example as well, and Max took us through, is start to look at some of the Pathlight reports that we reviewed and be able to start to measure where did people go through that funnel, right? If we had that fully connected journey, did they get creative A versus creative B? And what was that path through the funnel? And by doing that tracking and seeing who actually made it to the end of the funnel, we can see how much were they spending, what products were they buying, and then comparing that to our secondary test, just that tactical conversion only, we're able actually to see what was that difference in measure. And so in this case, that ended up actually netting out to a 20% higher average order value, which is massive for them. It can actually prove there is something to that awareness and that engagement, that extra media we're spending, it's getting us buying more products. People are buying a pillow that they didn't know this client sold, or a set of sheets. So they're spending more now because of all that additional messaging.
So Jake, this is really very impressive, but I want to be able to fully understand. Let me replay just so I got this right. What you're saying is that this client is questioning, should I be spending more money upper funnel in awareness? And when you go into awareness, obviously what that means is you're going to audiences that may not be in market literally right now, right? Yes. Because if they're control, and then you compared it with control. So the control set was, we go after the people who are in market right now, we deliver the message, convert them right away, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the big question. It's an enigma. It's for lots of advertisers we've been talking with, asking the same question. How should I justify investment in awareness dollars? Will that opening up of prospecting allow us to really generate immediate dollars and impact, right? And so to be able to see this kind of impact, the first thing you've been able to establish is that the order value goes up. There could be many other ways they could be judging this, but this is the one very concrete way you've been able to establish that this can be done, right? Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you. Let's keep rolling. You have other examples that you can actually point to where there has been. Oh, first of all, let's just go through learnings. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So one other quick thing on these guys is, now that we know it's going to generate more profitability or more spend with them, they're selling products, and now they can add additional products into that. Now what, right? What do we do with that? Because it's not just a single test that ends and you don't run and test anything in the future. So we always want to create this cycle of reinformation on our campaigns. So for these guys, you already hit the nail on the head. Well, what is that new balance, right? Between prospecting or building out acquisition, remarketing, branding, all these different elements where a lot of people say, you know what, we're really revenue driven right now. We only want to be doing our remarketing campaigns and getting the most profitability. Well, that might not be true, right? So now we can reset that balance and actually justify and prove out why upper funnel spending maybe doesn't need to grow, but it's definitely important. And with that, we can also start to see, yes, those consumers went through that life cycle. And at every point in that journey, there was different frequency that we needed to reach those users. It's certain cadence we needed to communicate to them. So rather than thinking of, well, what's my frequency I should be using on remarketing? What's the frequency I should be doing to get video views? You now have a better understanding of how long does it truly take a user to buy a product. And how should you divvy up that life cycle between different mediums? What should be that cadence? And then lastly, with those different tests that we're running, we can start to see, it might not be an all or nothing of only video is good for awareness. That might not be true. It might be the dominator in that, but there usually is going to be different preferences for different users. So a lot of media mix models have been run in the past, but now we can actually think of it as, well, what is that proper media mix throughout the entire funnel? So again, it just lets us inform and understand, what do we do in the next go around, and how do we make it better and better and better on every iteration?
Yeah, I think this is such an important consideration, because the concern has been, and frankly, it has been almost 7 decades or 8 decades, that marketers have always been asking the question, well, what's the balance between reach and frequency? If I have 100 impressions to invest in, should 20 be on reach and awareness and 80 be on remessaging, or should it be 50-50, or should it be other way?
And the beauty of everything with this tech is it's not always the same, right? If we recall what you guys were just talking about, yourself and Max, of dynamic insertion, some users need 3 and some need 100. So if we can save a few touch points on one user that doesn't need it, we can invest that in somebody that does. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing situation where this is the only option and this is the way everything needs to be run.
Perfect.
So we'll get into one more real fast here. And we're going to take now a little bit step further into it. So if we look at a consumer good company in the health food space, they've got supplements, dietary, health bars. There's a lot more products now that go into it. And so with these guys, they want to start now understanding a little bit more of the chaos, right? They've got, and you can stay on that next slide. That's exactly what we're getting into. It's a lot more robust now. There's a lot more diverse. It's not people that have just moved and need to get a mattress. Now everyone's a health food consumer to some degree, right? Concerned about some aspect of your health, maybe not now, but you will be in the future. So now we have a much wider spectrum from audiences and a much wider spectrum of product lines. So what we're able to now do, again, is to build out these flows and start to understand the chaos of what is a good intro product line. For these guys, is it a detox drink? And these are some of the things you saw when Max was going through as well. Do we start with the health bar or the supplements? We don't know, right? As this brand, they know what sells well, but they don't know what brought someone into the brand, what got them interested. They might not initially buy that product, but there had to be something to catch their attention. And so with those Pathlight reports, we're able to start running these tests and seeing, well, what was that awareness or intro good that got them engaged in the brand? What drive them to research why they should buy from this provider versus somebody else? And then ultimately, what was that final product that hooked them, got them through the funnel, and got them to purchase and now be a part of this portfolio of product lines?
This is very interesting. You know what P&G calls point of entry marketing?
Yeah.
And it varies by the audience too. Are you dealing with the younger audience? Is it, very health conscious audience? Is it, eco-centric audience? This all varies a lot. And I think the ability to map this thing and test it across those audiences can make a big difference, right?
Absolutely. And that's a perfect segue into this, right? Of understanding, again, not just the path, right? There's a lot of nuances of who is going through that path. So a few things to highlight with this one here, we call it the persona scorecard, but it's really just tracking those core personas and targeted personas. How did they change and how are they performing against each other as they go through the funnel? So if you look at, say, a healthy male and females type segment versus, someone that has a certain health condition or a certain concern, their behaviors are different, right? So each one of those is going to have a different time it takes them to go through the funnel. There's going to be a different cost associated with moving them through the funnel. Their likelihood to buy product is going to be different depending on the product lines that they were impacted or served. So we can pair these two reports to see one half of the equation, which messaging is working well, what's doing the best movement through the funnel, and then who are those people that went through that flow. And you can marry those together and start learning quite a bit.
Very nice. I mean, we're talking about intel. This is it. This is the intelligence to uncover and learn about audiences. Jake, you would be surprised how many marketers actually keep talking about and literally tell me on my face, like, I know lots of people are buying my stuff, but I actually don't know exactly who they are, like at a level of detail that I need to know. So I know how to, package the products, bundle it, give them the right entry points. there's so much unknown because, most of it is behavior. What we're talking about is behavior, the way you're talking about it, right? It's not there was a survey done and somebody told you this is what I like or don't like. We all know, for those of us who've been marketing forever, that what people say versus what they do is two completely different things. And what you're talking about is exactly what people are doing, right?
Yep, exactly. And so where that kind of leads us to is we have all this insight now, and it's not always just a black and white, okay, we've identified the best path. We're only going to market in those formats. We're only going to talk about those products, and we're only going to put them in this order. And we're only going to go after those top audiences that work. It's not about that. It's about prioritization. So for these clients, and for this one in particular, what they want to understand is, where do we heavy up? Where do we prioritize? We know what products we're selling, and we could just market those top sellers, but we want to prioritize, and so for them, it was giving them that confidence that we know which products to prioritize, what that flow should be, and where we should spend that money for best performance against which audiences. So now we can be confident in ramping up our marketing budget and our spends because we know exactly where those priorities lie. And that's the biggest thing, is it's not always black and white. You either do X or Y. It's just how much weight and priority do you put on one for confidence, and finding that balance of either growing the business or capitalizing on the product lines that are working well for you. And finding that right balance can give clients a lot of confidence to ramp up and start growing their business.
Absolutely. I think, Jake, what you're talking about is about building conviction, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Most of it is about marketers having conviction that, should I be investing in X? Should I be investing in audience or segment Y? That kind of question. And I think having some information and intelligence available with real behavior-based intelligence in particular, it builds the conviction. Now, let me ask Max a related question. So Max, I'm not pushing you to go on a limb here. However, I have to ask you this question because our audience is thinking about this, and they've asked this before. With so much intelligence in your hands, the way you and Max both described it, how far are you now to being able to predict outcomes? Could this become a predictive modeling mechanism to which I can say, for every dollar I put into this thing, the way it's recommending me to do it, it's X number of dollars that will come out? Am I really reaching now? Or is that something that's a reality at some point?
Well, Seraj, so we haven't figured out how to predict the future yet, right? So we're definitely not there. And I would say that there's no platform there. But what we allow you to do is discover and betterment, right? It's about discovering how changing conditions along the journey impacts the speed and efficiency of every audience that I put in. And I can clearly see how changing conditions impacts that, right? What I would say, we're at the crossroads of kind of man and machine and who does what. And our methodology is, we want machines to do things that humans aren't good at, like looking at big data sets in real time and determining probabilities in a fraction of a second, right? But we want those automation and those tools to actually enable marketers to have more success along the journey. So it's about marrying the two. We want marketers to get back to being creative, to planning messaging and being able to set it up in a unified way, and then using the AI to help determine, well, what is the best path, and then using that intelligence to make it better the next time.
Exactly. And I think, one of the senior agency media people we spoke with just last week was actually saying, I want to be able to marry comms planning and media activation into a single framework. And this is one of those ways to accomplish that. And I think, which is the reason why I was pushing you a little bit harder. I deliberately did that because this question pops up. It's like, okay, Fel, then can we start predicting based on that, right? And I would say that, Jake, do you have anything to add on that topic?
No, I think Max covered that pretty well.
Okay, excellent. That is great. Thank you so much for doing that. This is good. Obviously, prediction improves the conviction levels, and I think we can obviously move in that direction. Jake, there is one other thing that I wanted to ask you. You've talked about a product category which is very visible, transparent. You have access to it because of trackability. All of the stuff is happening online and so forth. And then you progressively made it more complex in the whole health category. The place where many of our clients are, and with whom we are actually in conversations, is online to offline. There's a lot of behavior that happens online, but the actual transaction of the real business outcome, people signing up and visiting or coming to your physical store, happens offline. And so, do you have any examples of those where this platform has actually been applied to really give those marketers confidence that you could learn just as much and apply the journey intelligence?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, step one is, there are a lot of ways we can measure campaigns through integrations and partnerships, just like we're doing on the data and buying side, right? So if you want to do a in-store attribution study with a place or a vendor of your choice, all of those options are still on the table. But let's just go to the edge case that, we're in a healthcare space. We're going to use this as an example, and we don't want to measure and track these users through their health life cycle because of all the privacy compliance and everything like that. So there really isn't a good, proper way to one-to-one measure that performance. It's still not impossible. So one of those in a healthcare client example that we were just talking about, we have a client that's opening health clinics, all right, and they're opening in markets that they've never serviced in the past. So it's a really good control group to say, we know what happens when we open a new location and what our visitation rates, our new health wellness tours and our signups end up being. Well, now let's pair that in a market where we haven't touched, and let's do some marketing initiatives with that. And so with that, the real key here is the control that Max was talking about, because we need to keep it very precise. Did a user go through a single messaging flow? Which creatives are we testing in which markets, and have that true unparalleled control? And ultimately, by doing all of this brand awareness of the location's grand opening, driving people to how easy it is to make an appointment, even though it's nothing that they can fully do online, we're still taking through quite a bit of that funnel. Ultimately, that last action where they go to the clinic, they do the wellness visit, they sign up for the service, we're seeing that it's actually generating about a 200% lift for them. So doubling the amount of business that they get during their launch period, had they not done anything digital. And so for them, it's a lot of confidence that we know, and we can keep replicating and executing that because everything is controlled, right? You can tell exactly which messaging to which users and which personas and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. We can measure that and see the offline lift. Yeah.
Excellent. I think that's very helpful, because that's what many marketers really want to be able to understand, how to close the loop all the way to the end. And does this really make a difference? And I think having that makes a huge difference. Max, there are so many other things we are doing on the attribution front, correct? There are a variety of different methods. And I'm imagining that this platform is not necessarily limited to just whatever it is that it does in real time, but there are so many other attribution and measurement capabilities and vendors that are out there. How does illumin connect with all of those? Just give some examples so that our audience really understands that.
Yeah, interoperability is key, right? For any marketer, we need to be able to work with a greater tool set. Many marketers use neutral third parties to measure marketing success, which is common practice, right? And it's something that most brands should do. And we enable that, right? We enable you to run MTA solutions through the tool, DCO, whatever measurement partner you want to use to measure marketing success can be enabled into the platform. And yeah, it's definitely something that's very important to us.
Excellent. Okay, Mona, I assume you're there.
Yes, Seraj, I'm here.
Frankly, I have asked a lot of questions, and I can continue to do that for a long time. But the goal is to get our audience to actually engage as well and see if they have any questions for Jake and Max.
Yes, we certainly do. We've got an excellent question here, and it is, how does illumin work without cookies in the future, and how illumin uses Unified ID 2.0 to increase accuracy of customer targeting?
Jake, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll take a first jump in there and we'll see if Max wants to add anything. I mean, at the end of the day, we don't want to say we're only aligning with Unified ID or just Neustar and only bet on one option, right? So our stance is at the end of the day, we have an Acuity ID, a Unified ID on our end, and we're trying to stitch that together with different services and different players in the space and not be limited to one. The scalability is going to be key. So by allowing portability that they all kind of stitch together, or one of our clients can say, you know what, we trust Neustar the best. We only want to use their service. Giving them that power, again, builds that trust and lets them have the confidence that they're getting the right, matching set. So at the end of the day, we don't have a single solution. It's stitching them together and being able to track those users through that journey through, a number of different integrations.
Which is true. It's so interesting. You all saw that Neustar was acquired by TransUnion. And so I think that will make it even a bigger, more legitimate sort of entry point with many other solutions you pointed to. Yes, Mona, others?
Yes. The next question we have is, are major brands bringing the creative aspect in-house, or is that value-added component done via agency? How is that dynamic trending?
Very interesting. Jake, what have you noticed?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of curiosity. I mean, there's been a lot of curiosity over the years of brands wondering, how do we bring it in-house? What do we bring in-house? How much of our workflow we bring in-house? Ultimately, I don't think there's a single solution from what I've seen that, everyone's going to bring full end-to-end and agencies are being phased out. Everyone has different comfort levels and the amount of expertise they want to bring in-house. So we've seen both ends of the spectrum. People that are very, very happy with their agencies, the people that completely want to bring it in-house and handle everything end-to-end, and kind of in the middle. So I'd love to answer and say this is what the single trend is, but every brand is a little bit different in their life cycle right now and how much they want to take on.
Max, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a customized decision for every brand, and we'll work with, agency, brand. It's a tool, right? So we wanted to make it easy for tool users to operate. The biggest thing that we wanted to make sure was true was you don't have to be an advanced tool user to operate, right? So that's something that we've enabled. If a simple user that hasn't been through hours and hours and hours of training is able to pick up and understand how to use the platform relatively quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mona, we have room for only one more.
Great. We have another question here. Do you need a variety of creative assets in order to use illumin?
Yeah, I'll absolutely jump in there. So you've actually probably seen in a couple of these examples here, you don't. It's kind of a function of what you put in is what you get out. So the more we're creative, the more options, the more channels, the more we can learn, but it's not a necessity. We run some very basic campaigns with just a few set of creatives in just display, and there's a certain idea they want to unpack or understand. And that's totally acceptable. So our team, whenever we're looking through, we just kind of marry together, what do we have to work with? What are we trying to learn? Is that reasonable? And we can run off from there. So it doesn't need to be a massive set at all.
That's a very legitimate question, in that as you add more channels into the mix, because this is an omni-channel framework, right? And so marketers are always curious, like, could there be certain channels where I will get better, more appropriate, more relevant audience for the product set of the brand that I'm representing, and so forth. And so the more diverse you get, obviously, the more creative demand there is. And I think it's also sort of the timeliness with which you can get the creative done. And that was the question before. Should I get the creative done in-house versus go to the agency? Wherever is the most expedient, many times the fastest way to get the creative, because you're talking about real-time data here, And so if certain things are working or not working, and I want to put more things in the test, well, you want to be able to have that level of like real frequency to happen, right? And so I think that's what the question is motivated by, most likely. Let me recap this. I need your help, Max and Jake. Hang tight. What I'd like to do is summarize this conversation. Many times our clients actually ask us, lots of great discussion, but okay, what's the end game here? So I think there are three things that I've heard you guys say. Number one, Max, you started us with a beautiful visualization, which is frankly not found anyplace else. The ability to pick audience cohorts, whether it's first, second, third party, behaviors monitored over time across so many touch points, and be able to see that on a single screen, fabulous, right? Then you talked about insights, the entry points, the frequency, the reach benchmarks, the level of creative engagement, be able to do the A/B testing on the fly and so forth, and be able to get that fantastic, right? And then there is the whole flexibility of measurement, being able to test, do the attribution, whether it's just online or whether attribution with offline. There's a lot here in terms of the coverage that marketers need that you guys talked about today. And most importantly, being able to tie the spend at any stage of the journey to the actual business outcome. I can't think of a better word to capture all of this. And Max, that's your turn. The term is, you used it, control. It is the umbrella word. So thank you for bringing that up. Thank you, Jake, for really such an amazing, insightful sort of dialogue and the discussion here. This is not the be all and the end all, guys. This was a third in our sequence that we have done so far, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Our final one for this year is going to be at the IAB Brand Disruption Summit. So definitely check us out. If we have already your email, you will get that announcement from our marketing team to really give you that opportunity to find out, sign up, and really join us there as well. We have some interesting surprises for you there in terms of the content and the material and the stuff that we will bring, because Max and Jake and our whole team behind the scenes is continuing to push the envelope forward. And so there's always something new and something interesting for us to bring to the table. With that, thank you, Jake and Max. Really appreciate it. Delighted to have you here. Thanks to Paul, Mona, Lindsay, Yal, and the entire team that produced such quality content to make it so easy for us to communicate and really clearly describe all of this thing. Thank you to the audience who joined us today and to IAB for such a great partnership. Have a pleasant day.